Welcome back to another episode of Cyber Conversations here live at InfoSec. I am so excited for this episode. You'll probably recognize the branding behind us. Oh, I suppose if you haven't heard of Swimlane, you really should. Mike, it's a pleasure to have you here with me. Thank you for joining. Why don't you kickstart? Tell us a bit about yourself. Tell us a bit about Swimlane. I suppose maybe just start with yourself. We don't want to overwhelm everyone.
So, name's Mike Lyborg. Been with Swimlane for almost 9 years, which is it's an amazing ride, right? But originally from Sweden, and then spent a bunch of time in the Marine Corps and other public companies, and kind of grown through the security space. Eventually ended up as the CISO here at Swimlane. I have a beautiful family with 5 and a 7-year-old son and a daughter. And what I really care about, risk, and then making sure that we're doing the right thing for the right reasons.
I suppose that means you're in the right company then, by all means.
Yeah.
And well, obviously I'm excited. This has been, for anybody that doesn't know, I met Mike a few months ago and been very much anticipating being able to get this episode filmed, because I think what Swimlane are doing, you're really hitting a pretty important part of the market that needs to be targeted. But what I want to do before we get into all of that is, you've been here pretty much since the beginning part of the journey. You've really seen Swimlane transform throughout the years. What was it that initially brought you to the company back when they were just a little baby?
Yeah, I think I was employee 20-ish or something like that. And one of the things that I saw is as we transitioned out of the government and onto more the, I guess what we call in the US, the private sector and commercial space, was that we kept on seeing the same issues. So at some of the companies I worked at, one of the things that we saw was the repetitive motion. So we had an attack, there was an incident, whether it was insider, external, bad actors. We would build these like Python and Bash and shell scripts, PowerShell even, and then we say, okay, this is playbook 101 alpha. Let's go ahead and fire off this PowerShell script to go and grab all the data so we could do a proper triage of the event and then see what we needed to do from remedial access. So the reason why I joined Swimlane was they slapped the UI on that, and that sounds overly simplified. But when you can take any enterprise, right, whether it's 5,000 or 100,000 endpoints, and then programmatically, systematically automate these investigations with a UI that truly actually makes sense, that's why I joined Swimlane. So I didn't want to just write a bunch of Python. I wanted to change the dynamic on how we work.
And to look at that, because 7 years is a long time in this industry, right? Like, the market evolves at this insane rate anyway, but the past couple of years in particular, the evolution of the threat landscape, the way that we're just looking at where vulnerabilities lie within businesses, this new technology that's coming in, the way we're having to innovate, it's change after change after change. How has it evolved over the past 7 years within the business? Because you're still solving the same kind of problem, but obviously the problem has evolved as well. So I imagine so has the company.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So part of the growth cycle is then, obviously being a vendor is interesting because we still have enterprise IT. And then we are tasked to protect, secure, and assure that our customer and corporate and cloud environments, everything else is also equally, if not more so, protected as well. And so going from like SIM days and massive data lakes, we're like, we have to put more data, but then seeing where maybe 99% of that data wasn't used to now a more distributed environment, and obviously the age of AI. Let's not go too much into that because I'm sure that's what everybody's talking about, but the journey's certainly not been dull.
Yeah.
Super fun, and we have to stay agile, flexible, and just continuously adapt. But yeah, even after almost 30 years now in security, I still love it, and I still have fun, and I learn new stuff every day.
And I think that's the fun about being in a vendor, right? Because you're able to be part of innovation and solving a problem from like the end user perspective, but you sit in a really interesting role because you're also a CISO within a vendor. So not only do you have the opportunity to see, okay, this is like the external problem that we're solving, but then you also have this internal responsibility, right? You've got a very difficult job on both sides. I suppose it'd just be interesting to break into that a bit. How does that even look as a role? How do you even split the time?
So I think I've just been blessed by hiring really good people. And so very fortunate in that regards. But when you hire great people, they may not know it all, but let's get them there, right? And so hire on aptitude, higher on drive, like excitement. Like that stuff is contagious. So as a vendor, when you hire people who have been there, done that, so they might have done the SIMS or EDR, MDR, all the different acronyms, right? To have them bring their knowledge and experience, listen and learn, and then see how we can then incorporate that into our risk management. And then the best thing I truly get to do is like being here at InfoSec with our EU team and everybody else, plus meeting our customers. So seeing what they're doing and what they're struggling with. A lot of times like, oh, we didn't think about that. So let's bring that back, put it on the drawing board, figure out how to solve the problem. Truly to just bring smiles back to people's faces. That's what we do.
That's such a nice way to put it. But ultimately, at the same time, it can be really easy to forget in this industry that the products that we're building and the problems we're solving are to help the everyday individual. For most people, it's to help a CISO sleep at night. So ultimately, that's the end goal. We're protecting people, we're protecting businesses, and it can be easy to overlook and realize that actually, yeah, it's just letting someone have a bit of a smile on their face. What about in terms of where Swimlane's going? And the reason I asked this question is because I referenced earlier the market evolves so quickly. But from your role and from what you're excited about, you've obviously seen what the past several years have looked like. But in your head, what do the next few years look like? Is there anything that you would say, and this doesn't necessarily have to be Swimlane specifically, but just as somebody in your unique position, that you're like, this is what excites me about the industry, where I can't wait to kind of get my teeth stuck into and really just make the most of being in this incredible role?
Yeah, that's a loaded question, but I'll try to do my best. So there's several things that I should kind of unpack there or maybe repack. So as a business, as a vendor, right, we also have a responsibility to the business to consider like costs, operating costs, and also what our customers want. But at the end of the day, it's protecting a company and everything else that comes with that, the people, the employees. So if we then start with SOAR and then pivoting to hyperautomation and now agentic AI and AI SOC, and we can continue to add different labels and quadrants and whatever we want to call it to go with the market. Moving forward, like where should we be? And so I think still it comes down to humans. So going back to making humans more efficient and truly making us love what we do. So 9 years later, I still wake up with a smile. Sometimes too early. Sometimes I don't go to bed early enough either. But at the end of the day, it's like we love what we do. And with the age of AI, now it's not necessarily that we all see, because we can call it like the autonomous SOC, right? Is that the way? Well, probably something that we'll start seeing more and more, and directions that a lot of companies will start going to. But how do we then bring humans in the loop to kind of make the final decisions if it's something really critical, destructive, or disruptive? Because every action, for any reaction to any action, we got to measure that from a financial perspective, a reputational risk as well, and operationally as well. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen as well.
I think that's the thing right now, isn't it? It's so difficult to predict because there's so many moving parts, there's so many changing things, there's so many things where we're like, we think we're solving the problem, but maybe the problem's going to change. We just don't know until it's the industry is just in this phase of R&D right now. I think it doesn't matter how much you think you've got the best solution. Tomorrow, there could be a new tech that then makes that redundant. We've seen it with things like Mythos and so on, bringing out all their own security products and the way that then that's impacting vendors. It's impossible to track. But it comes down to this sentiment clearly that it's about enjoying what you do. And I think it shows when you're in the right space, right? Because you don't want to be sat in this industry because it's a hard job to do and be like, this is awful.
Yeah, you don't want to be miserable. So you got to embrace it. And that's like any change. So one of the things that when we started building AI several years ago as part of the product portfolio company, right? Like looking at that, the wins and the losses, developing, trying to incorporate new technologies and not necessarily always seeing the outcome that was desired. That was really frustrating from a product perspective. And then trying to push the envelope and then also embracing our developers and engineers and all the other people that we work with, sellers, right? Marketing. Hey, here's a good way for you to use these new technologies and tools. Here's a horrible way.
No, honestly, Mike, it's been great to unpack all of this. And I think you, again, like I've mentioned a couple of times, you come from this really unique perspective. You've been through a hyperscaling kind of vendor, and I think that's such an incredible journey to be a part of. You sit in a really unique role. I think you've probably had in your career within security some incredible life lessons that are probably really valuable for people to hear about. For anybody tuning in, is there any key takeaway that you would say, I have learned this in my career? And whether it's say, do this or don't do this, what is it that you would say if you're going to take something away from this episode?
Yeah.
This should be it.
One of the biggest things that I still focus on is everybody here on the floor will say this 100 times a day. People, process, technology, right? But we should all focus on people because processes change. We can grow people. Technologies certainly change. Like when you can rotate vendors in and out of your ecosystem and not disrupt the business, whether it's operations or just success in general, the people are the ones that kind of stick with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, focus on people still, even in the age of AI. Make us better using AI, but then also enable the human beings with the non-human attributes as well, as far as an enablement perspective. The importance of risk, I think, when it comes to just business as usual or business not as usual, is probably what also really stuck with me. So in the military, the risk is it's fatal.
Yeah.
But here, depending if you're doing OT, you might be doing medical or financial, whatever it is that you're doing, the impact can be equally catastrophic if we don't do the right thing for the right reasons.
Yeah.
So put your foot down, say what you think, and say what you know, and help the rest of your leadership teams and everybody to make informed decisions to better manage that risk.
That's an incredible sentiment to close out on, to be honest with you. And so powerful, but something I couldn't agree with more. I think it's so important. Obviously, I'm always going to be biased that it's a people perspective side of things anyway, but ultimately, Mike, that's been a great episode. Thank you so much.
you.
It's already been a busy conference, but it's great to obviously sit down with you, talk a bit about Swimlane, but talk a little bit more about, like I say, I think that sentiment is so powerful and definitely something that people tuning in should pay attention to. But that is it for this episode. Continue to follow the journey as we unpack more throughout InfoSec. So thank you all for tuning in, and I will see you all next time for more conversations that are shaping cyber.
Cheers. Thank you.